Welcome to the show. It's been a couple of weeks since Discovery wrapped up its second season, so for this Aussie fan site, it's time to take stock of what we've seen and contemplate what's to come. To help me do that is Dr. Trek himself, Mr. Larry Nemecek. Larry, welcome to the show.
Oh, good timing, Matt, because I'm in such a contemplative mood.
Well,
Okay. After the chaos of the season, it's that calm time now, supposedly.
And what a season it was. Well, look, we're going to dive into all of this new Trek that's on offer over the next 4 podcasts. But today, let's talk Discovery's second season. What did you think of the season the roller coaster that we were on?
I liked it. No, I'm kidding.
I was going to say shit. I haven't prepared the next question.
Yeah. I told you I was turning over a new leaf. No, it's like you have gut responses, and there were a lot of, especially as it wound along, a lot of, oh my gosh, they went there. They did that? Oh. It really picked up when the words TALOS ticked out on her little display screen in the back of the shuttlecraft. You went, oh, okay. And then it instantly turned into, oh, I hope they don't mess this up. And which rarely happened. And then it was a lot of ways a kind of a roller coaster ride after that as they wound down with the things with the aspects and the concepts and some old school fanboy, fangirl canon, bits. You knew they had these 3, 4, 5 threads hanging that had to be wrapped up. The main thing, aside from celebrating each chapter, was after about 4 or 5 weeks and the whole "Who is the Red Angel" meme took over and people were having a lot of fun online. And I thought, my God, such a contrast with first season. Where people screaming about what was wrong with every episode, rightly or wrongly. There was the controversy of the week. And then this season just felt like a completely different series, a different vibe online. And the feeling and the vibe was there. And what's amazing is I think they planned for, this mystery. It's much more, it just feels saner. Even with the departure of the two of Gretchen and Aaron earlier this season. And you think, that may have been as disruptive as, nothing can compare to the birth pangs of season 1 and how many, different viewpoints and hands were on it. So I was predicting, and you could tell, and especially out of the gate, you could tell it just felt more like Star Trek. And people loved the second episode, New Eden. Some people kind of slacked off a little as it went on with just delight, but part of that may have been that the bar was so much higher, and the expectation of finding Spock and the beard and some of the, everything felt like it was flowing along. The one thing that I think was a happy surprise was I'm not sure CBS was prepared for the explosion that was Anson Mount as Pike. It was a happy surprise, and I think they thought they were due one. I mean, there's still some questions. You can still get into the weeds on some little fan, controversies or whatever. But what's amazing is where the season started, where it ended. The people you knew were just along for a 1-season ride, like Pike and Spock and, number 1. And where the crew started and where they wound up, where the ship wound up, which is basically a completely blank slate now. It's almost like... I mean, in the Voyager days, they used to talk about the reset button. No one's mentioned that name now, that term, but that's basically where they are now. But this season has been amazing. And most of all, I think they did what they set out to do, which was tell a great story, maybe answer some of the questions of the initial format of the show. And to me, the best part of it was actually what it layered into Sarek and the Spock family. Not just Michael's secrecy, but what it's laid on Sarek's back and what it's laid on Amanda's back. And when I watch them in Journey to Babel, if we're really going to merge all of this as it should be, it really adds a lot more layers of texture to what's going on. It'll be interesting to watch. I haven't done it yet. Journey to Babel and watch Star Trek 3 and 4 and just layer in what Sarek and Sarek on Next Generation and Sarek's death with Picard. And what does that set up for the Picard series down the line? Maybe. But just taking all that into account, I think that's been the aspect of this whole Discovery run that struck me is what it's layered into the greater canon through the Sarek family. I mean, lots of other things too, Klingons and yada, yada. But I think that's been maybe the most satisfying and long-lasting. I have a hashtag that I say, texture, not trivia. It's like, they got that wrong. It's like, is it wrong? Or is it just another way to have the exception prove the rule?
Yeah, it's become a lot more of a Star Trek show. I think instead of a space action adventure, it's we've sort of got that element of Star Trek back and that mystery, the away mission on New Eden. It all sort of wrapped up really nicely. And I think the most controversial thought that I've had the whole season was that Pike is the best captain that we've seen in Star Trek.
That can be controversial.
The best, hands down.
I know. You take away 260 hours versus his 14-hour season.
Yeah.
But you can't beat the fact that Anson Mount he was born to play a Starfleet captain of some kind. And the looks, the opening of If Memory Serves, when they actually had the balls to run the flashbacks right from Cage/Menagerie and ended with the Pike angle with the Jeffrey Hunter Pike that went right to the Anson Mount Pike. And we all knew this back at the beginning. People had gotten into it, but to have it visually thrown in your face again, forget the depths, even on a on a shallow level, only skin deep. It was an amazing matchup. And and I think it surprised CBS. I think it surprised Anson Mount. I mean, I think he was like, oh, this is exciting. And I think he was kind of a fanboy a little bit going in, but I don't think anybody was prepared for the magic of what came out on film. Between the showrunners leaving after about 5 episodes in, and things that were in process working themselves out, there are some trends I think I could see happening before and after. The supposed theme of spiritualism versus rationality, that was promoted at the beginning by Aaron Harberts and Gretchen Berg, and that seemed to go away and then kind of got a little wrap up at the end as Pike was out the door. Which is just normal. That's just going to happen. But you could tell they had things scoped out. You could tell that they told, Ethan Peck not to shave his beard and keep that. And but I think the one surprise that surprised people, and if anything was adjusted as the season wound up to go more Pike's way, I don't know if that was so much the case. But boy, he was just so much of every. It's the metaphor to say he took him out of the center seat there, but he really did.
Well, and for a character that we know has a finite amount of time in this galaxy, Anson Mount took that, ran with it, and said, you know what, I may only have 10 more years, but by God, they're going to be the best 10 years. And you can just imagine what I'm going to be doing on this Starship Enterprise. Having said that, I don't know how the Enterprise crew would have felt there towards the end when Pike turns to Discovery and says, you're all my family. We've been together for 14 hours, but you're all my family. Enterprise, you mean nothing. I'll miss you guys. But, I mean...
Well, I don't know if he said you're nothing to me, but
well, I'm just being,
especially now that he got his much hated holographic, projection system is now ripped out, which is hysterical.
I was concerned there that they were going to just keep ripping out every new system. It was just going to be another line of dialogue where we're just going to throw that away. No, that's rubbish.
Don't worry, Captain. Our controls consoles are all nicely bumpy now, and
or maybe there's a blind officer that's come along. So we have to go to tactile interfaces.
There you go. It's just part of the disability outreach. Right. It's the adaptational interface or something. Yeah, I think a lot of the objections people had to the first season, between the slight tweaking, not so much the tweaking of the existing Klingons, and you certainly saw it with L'Rell, but just the inclusion of the other houses, the species diversity that I kept clinging to all first season, no pun intended there, was actually shown. And then after a while, it was like in your face. It was almost like when there was a Klingon scene, even if it was someone you'd never seen before, the extra in the background, the camera would start with the one that looks like a next gen, a 24th century looking, armored with long-haired Klingon type situation where people see that first. They may not be a speaking role, but people are going to see them first. Like, look, he's there. He's in the background. Then you had people coming back and going, well, they're just pandering. Anytime some fan jumps up with a complaint, they like instantly write to that. And I go, well, they didn't, because the show and the writing were offset. But maybe over the season break, people got off on that. And I just want to say, oh, shut up.
Yes.
It's like, really, you can't have it both ways. Either you have your feedback and criticisms, and then don't criticize them for trying to meet some of the criticisms. That was crazy. But
I think the biggest thing too for me has been that I can see what these people are saying, what some of the criticism of the show is, not necessarily the outright hatred. Should Discovery have been a prequel to the original series? Should we have done all of this? Should it have been a reimagining? Should they not have used the original sets and blah, blah, blah? All those questions that we could, people have spoken for hours ad hominem on social media, on podcasts, like we're doing here. At the end of the day, it's Star Trek. It's got that label on the title, although in Enterprise's case, you don't need Star Trek in a title. But it is Star Trek, and it is there, and we have the uniforms, and we have the ship, and we have those people, and I don't really care who plays Pike or Spock or what the Enterprise looks like. If you tell me that's the Enterprise, that's the Enterprise.
Well,
maybe
I do, but to the hyper degree, that ship has sailed, and the basic choices out of the gate. That's 2 years ago. Yeah. That's 3 years ago now, and we are where we are now.
So get on board or get out of the way.
Right. Now, I mean, so as far as the season goes, maybe the least satisfying aspect or thread was, I don't know about you, but maybe it was, to me, maybe the way Control and Section 31 wound up. At the end of season 1, they wind up with Georgiou. They're probably thinking about this. They announced the Section 31 spinoff show early on. They're thinking about how to spin her off, bringing her back from. Don't leave Mirror Georgiou over there. Have her jump on the pad and come over with us. And now she's here. Obviously, the season was pretty plotted out before they ever shot, so they had time to even tweak things even before they started filming. But the model now is, and like right now, they're working on they've been working on season 3 for a couple of months before they shoot. They were working on Picard. They're barely begun shooting now for a couple of weeks. But this new model of the short seasons and the streaming is that they're writing way ahead of filming, and they can keep tweaking, up until times. But yeah, I think people initially were thinking, oh, they're just walking around Section 31 badges. Well, it is a little silly. Look how secret it is. Everyone knows who you are. But it's where this is a period in between the time we know Section 31 best, the Bashir time 100 years later, and the Malcolm Reed time of 100 years prior. And this is 100 years to either side, and things come and go and pendulum swing. And I was totally up with that. And, it was odd that we had the Admiral who shall only be known by his mouth.
Yes.
by his lower facial region. And some of that seems a little rushed and hokey, but it did tie things up, and people want to, debate how you do that, how these things are kept secret. But things are, things don't, things leak out. That's future texture, whatever you want to say. But the idea that they did try to put 31 back in the box. But as far as week-to-week drama and all, I just think that maybe it didn't pay off. Maybe it wasn't quite as heightened. Maybe they had to cut more corners on logic that they wanted to with the 31. The whole Michael and Spock arc seemed to flow. The bring back Culber, the find things for Tilly to do, and some of the odd things she wound up with. Tig Notaro's character, Jet Reno, Rebecca Romaine playing number 1. I was going, oh, surely she's not getting this one episode after all that hoopla. And then she pays off at the end in the last couple of shows. And the Enterprise bridge and bridge crew were, kind of made an impact there. And just seeing more. One of the goals of the year had to be seeing more of the Discovery bridge crew and letting Owo and Detmer and Bryce and Reese and Ariam even have some time alone. People debate, well, they wanted Ariam to be this loss that you felt for. If they wanted that, why didn't they build her up before one episode, the episode she dies in? But that's all done. I've been most interested to seeing how this looks now, but also even like in 5 years, which we can't talk about yet unless we get our own spore drive or time suit. But I'm going to be very curious to see how everything we're talking about here in the what the next season brings and how they all tie into each other and, and what it looks like then.
It's a fascinating time for me as well, because this is the first time I've sort of lived through Trek in production. To actually be through this and sort of, exactly as you're saying, we don't know how it's all going to tie together in the end. Once Discovery has wrapped up, and it's there in its complete series Blu-ray packaging, then we can watch it all and go, you know what? episodes 2, 3, 5, 7, 6, and 22 didn't make sense. and I'm not saying that we shouldn't criticise them. We should just take it all in. But
and no one's going to stop any from doing it. We're the 47th people talking about this season on
Aha.
and there will be 4,700 more. But no, I mean, people now see Deep Space Nine completely differently than they did back in the day when it was on. The paradigm of how we digest media has changed. No one appreciated DS9 for its strengths back in the day, only the weaknesses that it had. And half of that was about delivery and how you saw it. And Voyager, I always thought was just going to be the sad, weak sister of all of them for years. But no, the rise of Janeway's army. I mean, there are ripples, there are stones dropped to set out the ripples. There are seeds planted here that you don't know the effects of. Enterprise is still is blossoming with a fan base and reaction, and even even the original, the classic, the progenitor, and even Mighty Next Generation, pendulums have swung back and forth on how people view those at times or specific parts of them. So one thing that Discovery brought out was the new look at the first season with the new look at Harry Mudd. And I never stopped to think about people thinking of Harry Mudd as a perv and a pervert and a pimp and all this, which, to me, he was like he was a affable goofball con man. And then I remember trying to defend Harry Mudd as a serious character at one point, saying, well, he's much more sinister in Mudd's Women than he is in I, Mudd. And I, Mudd feels like it was played for laughs for most of it, but he's much more like I was defending him as a dramatic character. And then the last couple of years, not so much defending him, but answering criticism that he was just a skeeve and a horrible character to even another sign of the sexist, horrible 60s. And I'm like, I want to say, wait. The wiving was a takeoff on what was later on Here Come the Brides. The bridesmaids brought around from wiving for settlers may sound horrendous now, but it was a thing when they were men on the settlements, and whenever there was a new settlement happening and there were no women going there, and all of a sudden, if you wanted to civilize the place, you needed families, and you would bring women in. And they weren't pimped, they weren't prostitutes brought in. It was and I would kind of bring that up historically, and people would look at me incredulously or with hatred or whatever, like I was bringing up these horrible chapters of history. And in that case, the New Bedford women going to Seattle, 2/3 or 3/4 of them stayed and had families, and that's how they put roots down. So it was simplified in I, Mudd. Anyway, not to get off on this whole tangent, but just to prove the point that you never know how, a passage of 5 years or 10 years are going to alter how we view things. But what's also interesting to remember is this is made very differently. It's a short season. It's streaming. It's serialized. The other all prior series were not built on that assembly line, for that kind of an audience. So even as you think the Roddenberry thing, hopefully is baked into the cake of all these DNA, the outer presentation is going to alter at times. So, even that's a different experience.
Oh, dear. Well, Larry, that is fantastic. That is Discovery's second season. Now, tomorrow we're going to talk about the third season and that Section 31 show. We're going to dive a little bit into that. We'll see how we go. It might be a real snackable episode tomorrow.
Might be a little shorter visit. Yeah.
Well, of course, you can catch Larry at LarryNemecek.com, Larry Nemecek's Trekland on Facebook. There's a Patreon as well if you feel so inclined as to support Larry. Trekzone Patreon as well. Trekzone socials, of course, Trekzone.org.au on YouTube and Instagram, Trekzone.org on Facebook and Twitter. Larry, looking forward to chatting to you tomorrow.
Thanks, Matt. Trek well.